So good morning, everyone, and welcome. My name is Gershon Baskin, and I have the honor and the privilege of chairing this session this morning on building new narratives for peace, understanding to recognize one another. And we're really glad that everyone made it here to Paris, and we're obviously all very concerned of how we're going to get home. We've been assured that the French government people are already working on a plan. Maybe we'll end up staying here for a few more days and negotiate peace and come out with a full peace treaty. That would be something to use our time with. We could also go across the street to the Iranian embassy and tell them that we want peace with Iran as well. We're obviously all very concerned about the developments. I want to start and note, of course, with the situation back home between Israel and Gaza. I also want to note that we actually tried to bring about 50 Gazans who were in Cairo to this meeting. There were more than 35 of them who were waiting for days to get a visa in the French embassy in Cairo. We had arranged with the Egyptian intelligence for them to be able to leave Egypt and to return to Egypt. And unfortunately, for reasons that are not under our control, only 3 of the Gazans who were ready to come to this conference got their visas, and they are here with us, and we're very glad that we're here with us. The Gazans held a Zoom last evening of the people who did not get visas because they wanted to send a message that although they're not at this conference, they encourage their Palestinian colleagues from the West Bank and East Jerusalem to come to the conference and to ensure its success. And I think this is a remarkable gesture from the people from Gaza who are living in Cairo now. These are people who have lost everything, lost members of their families, lost their homes and businesses, lost their lives, and are living in exile right now in Cairo. In preparation for this meeting, we held Zoom meetings with all the Gazans who wanted to come to this conference. I sat in on one of them in the back listening. They didn't know I was listening, and it was very remarkable because every single one of these people from Gaza who wanted to come here to Paris said, I want to come and tell the Israelis that we want to live in peace. I was personally blown away. I know many, many people in Gaza, and I know that many people in Gaza are looking back at their lives of what happened over the last 20 months and are looking forward and have come to the realization that we have to live in peace. This cannot happen again. This has to be the last war. So I want to start this morning by putting in focus the reality of the human side of the story of the suffering of 2 peoples who are now living in trauma. And when we look at Israeli and Palestinian public opinion now, and particularly public opinion polls, we need to understand that when people ask them questions and they answer in the polls, their polls' answers are not necessarily a reflection of coherent, logical thinking. People are in trauma, and let's remember that. We have a really interesting session this morning with 4 speakers here. Each one is going to introduce themselves, so I will save the time and we'll dedicate to talk. We're going to have one round where each is going to present their view on the question of narratives. The main focus of the discussion is going to be looking forward at the new narrative, the narrative that we need to create that will bring us to peace and reconciliation. We're going to start with Leila Sansour, who will introduce herself. Leila, please.
Hello, everyone. Nice to be here. Nice to be presented by Gershon. My name is Leila Sansour. I am a Palestinian filmmaker, and I work in the media. I spent a lot of time during this last 2 years covering the situation in Gaza. And I think for anyone who has experienced what I have, obviously it's much worse for anybody on the ground. It's very, very difficult to talk about things with an easy heart, to be honest. And I, like Gershon, also feel extremely sorry that the group from Gaza were unable to make it here, because I think they should be center stage of this conference. I'm sure that many of you know how bad the situation is, and so I don't want to focus on that because obviously we are here to try and say to each other, this should be really the last round of violence that we ever experience, and we should do everything in our capacity to move forward and find solutions. I think we never waged peace in our region with the same power, with the same determination as wars have been waged. And I think we do need to acquire that seriousness, that earnestness about how we do that, how we wage peace. Very often people like me, when asked to speak on panels like this, we always expected to say things like, we understand the other side, or we want to listen and hear, and I am really, but I want to say that this problem is asymmetrical. Really, we have to bear that in mind very, very strongly as we speak about these issues, because we as Palestinians, we have lived under military occupation for decades now. And I don't imagine many understand what that means. So for us, the tragedy and the trauma that you talked about is not just what happened in the last year or two. It's been ongoing for decades. And I think it's really high time to resolve that. I know the people in Gaza, despite everything, are also saying that they want a solution. They are envisaging a future in which we find solutions and understand that we are going to share this region, that we're going to live together. But at the same time, I think that we really hope that people here understand just the extreme nature of the Palestinian experience, I think. And what can I say? I think I hope that we will find ways of moving forward towards a better future. Yeah.
Thank you, Leila. Ashraf Ajrami, please.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ashraf Ajrami. I'm originally from Gaza Strip, Jabalia refugees camp. I live in Ramallah since 2007. I'm a journalist, writer, and political analyst. I'm also the head of Damur for Community Development, non-profit organization. Okay. I want to speak about the Palestinian public opinion. There is a huge change within the Palestinian public opinion after the war started on the 7th of October, mainly in Gaza Strip. The majority of the Palestinian people in Gaza Strip doesn't want to return to the situation was before this war. Mainly, they want to get rid of the authority of Hamas, of violence, of wars, of everything unnormal of their circumstances. People now are very optimistic to have a change after stopping the war. The most important thing for the people is to stop the war immediately, to allow the humanitarian assistance, and after that to go to a serious political process. This is the main concern of the people in Gaza Strip and West Bank alike. Also in West Bank, although there was a huge support of Hamas at the beginning of the war, because people saw that Hamas defeated the Israeli army, the occupier army, but after a while, when people realized the maybe size of the catastrophe in Gaza Strip and the this alliance for resistance with Iran and other parties didn't help the Palestinian people, I think there was also a change within the public opinion. The support of Hamas decreased in a big manner, And I think also the majority of the Palestinian people in West Bank and Gaza Strip supports two-state solution and peaceful agreement with the Israeli side. And I think it is an opportunity now to go to such solution, because circumstances, although it is a catastrophe and very hard situation that no people can bear, they want to have a change. This is the opportunity to have a change, to go to real peaceful agreement between Palestinians and the Israelis. And I think the most important thing within the two public, Palestinians and Israelis, is the leadership. If the two people have the courageous leadership that can sign an agreement, I think the majority of the two people doesn't hesitate to support this kind of agreement. I'll stop here and we can talk after a while about it.
Thank you, Ashraf. Naomi Sternberg.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for the Paris Peace Forum for having us. And like every time we are standing on a stage, we need to say that we call for the immediate end of this war and the return of all hostages. I would also like to acknowledge that I'm from the Geneva Initiative, and right here in the room we have many Geneva Initiative people like former ministers Omer Bar-Lev and Nitzan Horowitz, former MK Mossi Raz and Zehava Galon, my co-partner for running the two-state coalition, Yariv Oppenheimer, so I'm very honored to be in this stage in front of you. I'm the director of Conflict and Gender in the Geneva Initiative, and also a co-director of the Two-State Coalition, which aims to bring together Israeli and Palestinian civil society. And I'm also doing my PhD on the psychology of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. I've been a long-time peace activist and feminist activist. And I want to say that this morning, I think that we see once again in every type of frontier that if we're not going to actively, relentlessly work towards peace, we're going to receive war. And we have to end this immediately.
Maoz Inon.
Yeah, hi everyone. I can see many friends, Palestinians, Israelis, but I don't see my sister more. We shared the room last night, and maybe it was enough intimacy she could handle with me. So I hope she's enjoying the panel where she is. Israel just waged war with Iran. So many, and we also ask ourselves, how can we talk about peace nowadays? How can we act and make peace? And there was a very important Jewish leader, Yosef Aglili, a rabbi, that just after the destruction of the Second Temple, he said, peace is so great that when war happens, we must start with peace. Peace is so great. And I want also to take here understanding to recognize one another. Also to call France, President Macron, to recognize the states of Palestine. We need France to recognize the states of Palestine and bring the entire EU nation in these efforts to end once and for all the war in the Middle East. My name is Maoz Inon. For 2 decades, I was involved in shared life, in shared initiatives between Jews and Arab in Israel. And after the death of my parents on October 7th, Hamas attacked, me and my siblings, the 5 children of Bila and Yacobi, we have decided to reject revenge, that revenge will never bring our parents back, and revenge, like Leila just said, will just escalate the bloodshed, the hate, the fear that we've been trapped within for a century. It didn't start on October 7th, for a century. And my mission is to make peace by 2030. And I have 5 very simple steps, what we should all take in order to achieve peace by 2030. I will share it later. And Nomi, I also want to disagree with you. You say that we must say. We must say nothing. We must act. We must act together to stop the war in Gaza, to stop the war in Iran, and to start a new future, a new future, a new life that we all deserve, Israelis, Palestinian, Iranian, all over the world, future that is based on equality and dignity, shared acknowledgement and recognition to recognize each other, reconciliation and healing, security and safety. And nowhere through human civilization, military force was able to bring security and safety. And here in Paris, the capital of France, that was waging war against all nations in Europe. France was waging war in your history against all nations in Europe beside Denmark. No one still was able to explain me why Denmark was excluded. And we are sitting here in a peace conference. And we need by 2030 to sit in a peace conference in Jerusalem, the shared capital of the Palestinian people and the Israeli people, and to wage peace throughout the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Maoz. By the way, the Danes were busy fighting the Swedes, so they didn't have time to be involved in wars with French. I want to be a little provocative and challenge the next round. The Palestinian historian, well-known Professor Rashid Khalidi, in his last book, I don't know if anyone in the audience read it, The 100 Years' War on Palestine, about 90% of the book is devoted to detailing in historical terms what he called the colonialization of Zionism of Palestine, the taking away of the land of the Palestinian people. That's all very interesting, and it's historically documented. The most interesting thing about Rashid Khalidi's book is the last chapter, in which he says the following: "You cannot expect us Palestinians to legitimize Zionism. We can't. Don't ask us to legitimize Palestine, the taking of our land, the taking of our right to live in our land. But we Palestinians need to overcome our own narrative and deal with the reality of Israel. Israel exists. 7 million Israeli Jews and 7 million Palestinian Arabs live between the river and the sea. And what Rashid Khalidi said in a very brave way is that we Palestinians need to overcome our own narrative. If we ever want to live in peace in our land, if we want to have independence and liberation and dignity, we need to understand that the Israelis have to have security, and that they will get security as well. So we are challenged today by the pro-Palestine campaign around the world with their slogan, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, which is essentially a negation of what Rashid Khalidi is saying, the recognition of the existence of Israel. So I would like to propose that we come away from this meeting today adopting a new slogan, which is from the river to the sea, on two states we agree. This is the new narrative that we need to shape, recognizing that each side has a problem in dealing with the legitimacy of the self-claim of their own side. The legitimacy of the narrative that existed before has to be in our history. And we need to find a way to move forward to the new narrative, which puts all the claims of legitimacy on the side and deals with the reality of the existence of both people. I'd be happy to hear your responses, or feel free to respond to anyone else.
Yes. I mean, I'd like to speak. I think that I understand what you're saying, but in my experience, and for anybody also who lived, for example, during the Oslo period and the post-Oslo, I think it's very simple and easy to see that the Palestinian society in reality has accepted the two-state solution a long time ago. And even with all the downsides of Oslo, Palestinians behaved like a people who were accepting that major historic compromise. I think that in all fairness, and we discussed that as a panel before we came on stage here, I think that I do believe that part of Israeli society are fearful of Palestinians not accepting them living by our side. But to my mind and to the mind of a lot of Palestinians, and I think we have the right to think this way, the problem is that the Israelis not just fear, but that there is a large segment of Israeli society that actually doesn't think Israel has borders. In fact, Israel wants from the river to the sea, Israel expanding all the time, Israel is building settlements. Even after Oslo, the settlements inside my city of Bethlehem doubled, although the Israelis signed a peace treaty. So in a way, I think I also, like Maoz, I call upon President Macron, France, and everybody, all countries, all Western countries, to recognize Palestine as a prerequisite for this conversation to begin, the conversation about we need to be assured as Palestinians that this is serious. And also, I think recognizing Palestine will reassure us that those elements in Israeli society that could act as spoilers, who don't want the emergence of a Palestinian state, will also be put in their place and be told, no, we are going to have to sit at the table and negotiate now this reality. We're going to allow Palestine to emerge as a state, as a sovereign state, and this will be a strong message, a positive message to us, if Palestine are recognized, and I think a positive message, or at least, like I would say, maybe it will force many Israelis who we fear to look reality into the eyes and say, that's it. We are going to have to sit down. We have no other choice. We burnt all the ships behind us, and that's our only option now. We're building two states, and we're building, allowing for a sovereign Palestine to emerge.
Thank you, Leila. Naomi.
So I have a few things to say to Leila and generally. First of all, I think that when we look at Israeli society, when you look at the polls that I know are extremely impactful when it comes to hope, I think we need to take into account that people are reacting, feeling, and engaging in a way that is actually expected from them in long-term violent conflicts. That's one thing. The second thing is that if we talk about building new narratives, we have to recognize the narrative work that has been done in order to reach a point where the majority of Israelis do not believe that there is a partner for peace. So I think that the Israeli right wing understood that the majority of the Israelis are not very ideological. They're pragmatic in their nature. We Israelis, the majority of us, are actually pragmatic. But what happened is that the right wing understood this, and for 2 decades really invested in creating this reality where not only the two-state solution will be less visible on the ground, but actually that Israelis will not look for a Palestinian partner. And when it seems that there is a Palestinian partner, they will find the best reasons to not acknowledge it. And I think that what we're experiencing now, and especially this morning, is the perfect example of a shock doctrine. We're completely disoriented, we're completely in shock all the time, traumatized. Our news cycle of one day is like a 10-year news cycle in a normal country. And I'm telling you, when in the Geneva Initiative, when we create dialogue between Israelis and Palestinians, not only for the sake of dialogue, but for the sake of political action that has to be taken, we get a glimpse of what normal reality should look like. And dialogue is not always easy, it's painful, but we understand that when it comes to narrative, we can recognize the other narrative without actually adopting it. And this parallelity of two narratives, two histories existing in once, is also something that I think Rashid Khalidi means. And as an historian, he's well aware that there could be different types of perspectives on the same history. And just to say that I think that when we talk about reconciliation And when we talk about creating a narrative that pushes for reconciliation, we have to recognize that, and we have to make it clear that it isn't about giving up our pain, because we do have a real natural necessity to hold our pain, to be recognized of our pain, which is true and real and deep. And it's not that part of Israelis are fearful, all Israelis are fearful. And to think that Israelis do not want peace is something that I think I disagree with it. I think our government doesn't want peace, doesn't want to give up the power that it reached. But I think what I want to say, that reconciliation, we have to make it clear that it isn't about giving away our pain, it's about refusing to weaponize it.
Ashraf, I lecture often with my partner Samer Sinjalawi. We lecture before Israelis and Palestinians. And one of the things that Samer says when he talks to Israeli audiences, it shocked me at the beginning when he first said it. He said that we Palestinians, we Muslims, have to recognize that the Jews have a connection to the land. They've always been there. And we as Muslims cannot deny it. It's part of our religion. It's part of our history. He says this, and this is a big challenge, I think, to a lot of Palestinians to hear it. The reaction of the Israelis when he hears it is, wow. But he adds another sentence, and he says, I want to remind you Israelis, you Jews, you were never there alone. There were always others in the land, and we're the others. This is a kind of step toward mutual recognition that I haven't heard in the 47 years that I've been crossing borders and doing this work. I wonder, can you say it? Do you think that the reaction of Palestinians, if you were to say it, would be accepting, or would there be pushback?
Gershon, I think it is unfair to talk about Palestinians and Israelis as equal parties. Even when we start with Oslo Accord, the main or the major mistake is not equal recognition and mutual recognition between the two sides. The Palestinians, their leadership, recognized Israel, the right of existence of Israel. But the Israeli government didn't recognize the right of the Palestinian of self-determination and statehood. And this is the problem of the Oslo Accord, and I think this is also the main reason that this agreement failed totally, and the consequences of this Hamas and the violence in this region. So we should return to the origin. I think Palestinians now is out of discussion that they recognized Israel, the right of existence, the connection of the Israelis to places even in West Bank. The Palestinian leadership agreed to division in East Jerusalem, in the old city, in the Jewish quarter, in the Western Wall, everything. So we are now out of this. We don't, even Hamas, before the war in 2017, accepted the principle of establishing a Palestinian independent state on 1967 borders. It means de facto they agreed to the two-state solution. Now we are in a situation that the main idea is to regain the hope. This is the most important thing, to regain the hope. It is the role of the international community. It is not the Israeli government. France is a very important player in Europe to have this, to lead Europe to this direction. Not just for immediate recognition of the Palestinian state, because it is very important to stop the Israeli policy of annexation and settlement project in West Bank, because the recognition is useless if it is not adopted in a package. That when France, for example, and this is part of our discussion with the officials of France, why it may change the situation. why we should recognize Palestine like Spain, Ireland, or Norway, or other places, but nothing happened with this. I think, first of all, France is a superpower. France is a permanent member in the Security Council of the United Nations. France can lead Europe and other European countries to recognize Palestine. France can also have such kind of agreement with UK, and UK also can recognize Palestine, and it will be four permanent members in Security Council. And United Kingdom also can bring other countries like Canada, Australia, Japan, and other countries to recognize. It will be a huge momentum if France go immediately to this recognition. And the second thing, which is very important, this recognition should be adopted in such kind of conditions for the two sides. For Israel is not pass beyond the 1967 borders because it is the recognized state from France and the international community, and also for Palestinians to act as a state. Their institutions, the reform, elections, everything, they should act as a real state to rebuild their own state on the ground. I think these things can bring people on the two sides to adopt the two-state solution and to promote the peaceful process between the two sides. And the last point I want to say that it is very important because, to do it now because there is no time. If it will be a delay, it won't be relevant after a while, because the Israeli government is doing systematically a change on the ground to avoid any kind of two-state solution, and this process should be prevented by real and immediate recognition of the Palestinian state, which can convince people that there is no chance to return to violence or any kind of armed resistance or to achieve their goals. Only the political process, the diplomatic process can make a change. Thank you.
I think we can all agree that there is no symmetry in this conflict, and the call for the recognition of the state of Palestine is definitely the call of this conference that we're holding here in Paris today. My own opinion, and I've said this to the French officials, is that the call needs to be for all 193 member states of the United Nations to recognize both states. The duplicity of countries supporting the two-state solution and only recognizing one of them has to end. You cannot talk about a two-state solution and only recognize one of them. One of the Scandinavian foreign ministers that we met with recently asked in our meeting, when we called on recognition of Palestine, what are the borders of the state of Palestine? And our response was, tell me what the borders of the state of Israel are, and you'll know what the borders of the state of Palestine are. This is not a reason why Palestine should not be recognized. Maoz, next week on the 17th of June, President Macron will be traveling to New York for the Franco-Saudi summit, co-sponsored by Mohammed bin Salman, in the framework of the Global Alliance for the Implementation of the Two-State Solution. It's expected that 90 countries will be represented at that meeting in New York. Israel, of course, won't be there. If you were appearing at the Franco-Saudi summit of the Global Alliance, tell us your 5-point plan that you would put before them.
Okay, for that I need only a minute, so I'll start with commenting.
You can take
We'll start with
3
commenting.
minutes.
Borders, like identity, like discourse, are very flexible. Even though we think they are concrete, but no, they are not. And discourse and polls are one of the most flexible things in modern politics. And we need to acknowledge that. And after the Yom Kippur War, 73 war, it was Mapai's second biggest landslide victory in the election. My grandfather was a Knesset member. Maybe that's why it was such a big victory for them. And Golda said, there will be no peace in our lifetime. Moshe Dayan said, it's better to have Sinai Peninsula without peace than peace without Sinai Peninsula. And the day Saadat arrived, and then I will later connect it to Makun and MBS. When Saadat arrived, the chief of staff, Mota Gur, could not believe they are not bluffing, and he put snipers on the buildings of Natbag. And when Saadat cars was driving to Beersheba, Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, and Haifa, the children of Israel were waving with two flags. Israel and our biggest enemy the day before, because the day before the polls showed that 72% of the Jewish Israelis were against negotiation, that Egypt only want to destroy the state of Israel. And of course they were waving with the flag of Egypt. And also to comment for Ashraf, we have no leaders at the moment in our region. We have only politicians. And we also don't need to convince the majority. We need to convince enough people. Enough people. Ben Gvir and Smotrich are not the majority. But they are playing in the most important field for humanity that we forgot how to get there and how to play there. And this is the field of dream. Only through dreaming we can change the reality. And this is my first step. We must dream of peace. And the second step is to agree on our common ground and shared values, which we already do. Equality and dignity, shared acknowledgement and recognition, reconciliation and healing, security and safety. On those values, we're going to build our dream. And the third step is exactly what we are doing here today, to build a coalition, a Palestinian, Israeli coalition, and international coalition. Without your support, we are not going to make it. Like the Catholic and Protestant in Northern Ireland couldn't do it without the EU involvement and without the EU investing billions of euros to end once and for all the civil war or the conflict in North Ireland. And like the EU could not have made it without the Marshall Plan to rebuild Europe. You cannot do it on your own, and we wouldn't be able to do it on our own. So we must build a coalition. And then the fourth step is to have a roadmap. Without a roadmap, we are not going to get anywhere. We must have a plan. And the fifth step is to execute and implement the plan. And this is so I also want to tell you or to announce that yes, we have a plan. We have a plan, and we already implemented how to make peace by 2030. And the plan is also very simple, only 5 chapters. The first chapter, again, is going to the dreaming. This is the base. This is where all started. And we Israeli knows a lot about dreaming because my grandparents were Zionist pioneers immigrating from Eastern Europe while the earth was starting to shake in their communities. In the late 30s, they came to mandatory Palestine with a huge dream to build a homeland for the Jewish people after 2,000 years in exile. And they fulfilled their dream, and they made many mistakes, that's exactly why we're here now. So we must dream. We must amplify our dream. This is the second chapter. And again, we are doing it already now. We must amplify our dream in every stage, every closed room, every conference, classroom, Israelis, Palestinians worldwide. I'm from here. I'm flying this afternoon to San Francisco to do exactly the same, to amplify the dream of peace. The third chapter is to legitimize peace. We are talking a lot about legitimize our movement. We need to be legitimized. We need Macron and other world leaders to be with us on the stage, not just to speak to us, but to listen to us. If you will keep ignoring us, you will keep us outside of the rooms like the Saudi and the France are doing in next meeting. They haven't invited anyone from the civil society. We must be in the room. Reconciliation experts, trauma and healing experts, spiritual leaders, faith leaders must be in those rooms. Otherwise, we're going to miss the opportunity once again. The fourth chapter is policy change. Stop investing in tools of destruction. All those countries that haven't embargo weapon shipment to Israel are supporting the war in Gaza. We must stop sending weapons to Israel. We all must stop sending tools of reconciliation, tools of dialogue, of shared life initiatives. That's what Pope Francis told Aziz, my Palestinian partners, myself. Let's stop sow destruction, fear, and hate. Let's sow hope. And the fifth chapter is to create a political will. Probably those who will sit in the negotiation room and those who will sign the peace treaty, and it's going to happen by 2030, because like we said before, I don't remember who it was, there is an urgency. We cannot wait. We cannot wait. The numbers that we are seeing now, 50,000, 60,000, can go to 600. I don't want to say the number 6 million, but 80-something years ago, from the streets of Paris, from the train station here, Jews were sent to the death camp. And like the French who were living back then could not stop it, this is exactly how we cannot stop the horrible war that is happening in Gaza. We must have your support. We must have your support to stop this war. And I want to end with Macron and MBS. We need them to be as courageous as Anwar Sadat. They must come to Jerusalem to recognize both people, to the rights to have a statehood, to answer the fears and the trauma that is within every Israeli. All Israelis live in trauma. If it's since the Inquisition in Spain, the Holocaust, the pogroms, October 7th, we see ourselves as the ultimate victims. And this is a fact. And to answer it, we must create a sense of security. And I'm welcoming and inviting Macron, MBS, and all G7 leaders and Arab and Muslim leaders to come to Jerusalem, where peace must start from. Thank you.
Thank you.
They couldn't because Benjamin Netanyahu won't welcome them.
A quick word from Naomi, and then we're going to open it up to you.
I just want to mention that when it comes to dreaming about peace, I'm a part of a generation that really never had any kind of collective memory. I was born after Rabin assassination. No collective memory whatsoever of any peace process. Benjamin Netanyahu was practically my prime minister my whole life.
What a disaster.
But I do want to say that these kinds of encounter and being able to sit with Ashraf and Leila and Balkis here with me right now after being really separated, we're not able to meet in Israel, Palestine in the last year and a half. So again, thank you.
So we're going to open it up to you. As opposed to many other places, you don't have to ask a question. You can also say something if you want to say it. The one thing that I request is be brief. And please introduce yourself. We have mics that are coming down here in the front.
Thank you for your all of that what you brought here, because we can work from there. My name is Dr. Claudine Corral. I'm the president of the Institute for Intercultural Intelligence Training. And we hear hints of things that are said between the lines. And that's why I have a question for our dear former Minister of Prisoners' Affairs, Mr. Ajrami. You said that we need courageous leaders. On the Israeli side, we have the problem of the Israelis. But who would you see as the courageous leaders on the Palestinian side? This is my question to you today. Who is the courageous leader that you're hoping for on the Palestinian side? This is my question.
Thank you. We'll take a round, and then the people on the stage will respond. Up here in the top, Maha.
Hi, good morning, everybody, and thank you for this conference. And also, I would like to thank France for this opportunity, and I hope that they will recognize Palestine as a state very soon. Actually, I have a question for Naomi, my friend. Naomi, it's like regarding to our topic, if you had the chance to rewrite a key narrative that shapes public opinion in Israel today, what would you do?
Thank you. Over here we have a question. No, wait for a mic. It's coming.
I'm Daniel Gerlach. I'm the Director General of Candid Foundation. We engage in a project called EPICON, the European Palestinian Israel Trilateral Dialogue, where we try to induce some ideas of the ones that you have shared now to also a European audience and opinion leaders. I'm from Germany, from Berlin, so I would be interested, you mentioned, Maoz, the courage that you expect from Mohammed bin Salman and President Macron. What do you expect from the country that I'm from? What do you expect from Germany? And that question goes to all of you, but since you brought it up, Maoz. Thank you.
Hello, and thank you everyone for sharing everything. My name is Kauthar. I'm an academic. I'm from Nablus. So I'm coming, from the West Bank, and I've lived across different cities in the West Bank. And after that, I truly recognized how narratives can be shaped for a better future for both people. But the question, and I do have actually an answer to that, which is, education and dialogue. This is in my point of view, which is simple, but to be implemented, it just needs a lot of work. But to talk about the Israeli side, and during the right-wing control at this moment, like seriously, how can be implementation for a different reality on the Israeli side for a different point of view and different shaping of narratives from towards the Palestinian, from the Israeli to. So I would like to ask this question for both Israeli speakers, and thank you.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Lisa Rozowski from Haaretz. I actually have a question to Mr. Adrami. You mentioned that you said that Hamas actually sort of recognized the two-state solution. I would like to hear more about it. Like, do you think that he actually, the movement is legitimate and it still stands behind this quote-unquote recognition of the two-state solution? And number two, since you are former Minister of the Prisoners' Affairs, I would like you to address generally like the issue that in Israel is called pay for slay. First of all, what is done now by the Palestinian Authority to address the concerns, the European concerns as well, and what do you see? How do you see the future of this? Thank you.
One more over here.
Thank you. A question for everyone. I want to actually kind of challenge.
Introduce yourself.
Oh, sorry. I'm Omri Evron from Jaffa. I represent the Peace Initiative. I'm also from the Jabha Demokratia L'Salam El Mosawa. And I want to challenge actually the framing of this panel. Maybe because the sides are not symmetrical, maybe instead of talking about narratives for mutual recognition, where again, as if the occupied recognition of its occupier is somehow a roadblock to peace. Instead, we should be speaking about narratives of a Palestinian self-determination or Palestinian independence, again, alongside Israel, not as something that is an existential threat, but something that narratives without political praxis, without a political project, are just philosophizing about the world. The political project is Palestinian independence struggle. Shouldn't that be the focus of our narrative, especially when there is a genocide going on with the active support of all major Western countries, including France? Again, until there's an arms embargo, every one of them is directly implicit.
One last question over here.
Thank you. My name is Benoit Meribel. I'm the president of the One Sustainable Health for All Foundation, linked to Pasteur Institute. And I belong to this assembly here, so I'm very pleased to see this discussion. Because here, it is the third assembly in France, and it's where we have all the civil society, and every week we have debates, and belong to the group of NGOs and foundations. I'm going to the question that I would like to ask to all of you, but having in mind that what we have seen, I spent 30 years in countries in civil war, Liberia, Somalia, etc. What I have seen and what we know and what knows the specialists, the peace is made, of course, by the politician when he is ready, but it comes from us, it comes from the people. This is very clear, very, very clear. It's not United Nations, not politicians. They need us. This is why we have this. And we need to believe in that concretely. We need to believe in peace because when people they are afraid, they go behind extremists. It was the case in Yugoslavia. It's the case in many countries. We know that. We know that. So my question is how to do this action plan from civil society. We are in a modern area. We have technology, how we can be stronger together, but giving, of course, for anyone in any sign, any camps, making sure that they will be safe. It's a dream, yes, and you're right, but we need to what is the first chapter? And the first chapter is to be convinced that it is possible to do it. We have the tools, and we are several believing in that. So I don't have the solution, but I believe that what will follow tomorrow, after this Thursday, I believe not only to the politician, Macron, of course, but from us first, without borders. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll come this way, starting with Maoz.
I will start, so for the two of you, okay? So what I'm expecting Germany is to realize that Germany and Israel are not sharing the same set of values anymore. Israeli policy is based on Jewish supremacy, annexation, and ethnical cleansing. Those are the values that Israel act upon. And if the state of Germany will no conditionally keep supporting the state of Israel, you will bring to Israel destruction, and you will have 80 years after the Holocaust, you will have Jewish refugees in Germany. This is what you're going to make. Germany is bringing to Israel destruction. And I'm saying it to every politician, every representative of the German government that I meet. And I'm saying it for more than a year and a half now. So Germany should join Britain, Canada, and other countries to sanction members of the Israeli government. Germany should put weapon embargo on Israel. If we are your best friend and we are drunk, you are not giving us keys to the newest car, BMW. You will take the keys from us and you will force us to get sober. But now we are not there. So this is what I'm expecting from Germany. And for you, I forgot your name. First, so we are creating a coalition, and we put some milestones that by 2030 we'll reach peace. Hopefully, by really soon, the next few days, we'll announce about the second People Peace Summit that will take place in May 2026. After the very successful peace summit we just had with more than 80,000 participants, Israelis and Palestinians, and many of the here in the audience, not just Israelis and Palestinians, that also came to endorse and support our efforts. President Macron did send us a video, but we want for next time that he will come. And if Netanyahu don't let him, he is the president of France. He can just come, and we'll welcome him.
Thank you, Mose. Leila.
Yeah. I'm particularly grateful to the comments that came from you. And it's not that I don't understand the power of narratives or the fact that it is important for both people to listen to each other. And I suspect that obviously a lot of that work and a lot of these encounters will take place in a better way, I think, if we do have peace rather than not. But to have peace, I think we should start being serious about the fact that the problem isn't really the narratives, to my mind. I think, in fact, constantly bringing back the issue to narratives could obscure the real problem and how we go towards a solution. I think we have a political problem and a problem of power. There is an occupier that has complete power over another people. And in the end, I think one step towards trying to change that reality, politically speaking, could go way faster towards changing the way people perceive each other. And therefore, I again want to reiterate, and I know that the people from Gaza who couldn't make it here today wanted to say, please recognize Palestine as a very first step towards us having a meaningful discussion about peace. And a first step, ceasefire, as Mao says, stop arming Israel, do everything you can to curb Israel's power at the moment, because it's only creating havoc and creating, I think, greater potential for spoilers down the line if we and when we want to build peace. And I think, please recognize Palestine, and we really need that as soon as possible.
Thank you, Leila. Ashraf.
I want to answer your question about the courageous Palestinian leader. I think, in spite of the criticism of President Mahmoud Abbas, he is the most moderate Palestinian leader. And he's courageous enough to go to agreement. He was about to reach an agreement with Ehud Barak, and after that with Ehud Olmert. Unfortunately, the two of them stopped the negotiations because one went to early elections, the second went to jail. But still, until this moment, President Mahmoud Abbas and PLO mainly are in favor of two-state solution and are capable and ready to go ahead to sign such an agreement. So from a Palestinian leadership point of view, there is no problem to have an agreement. About the issue of prisoners, which is very important, I think, the claims of Israel that the Palestinian payments for families of prisoners encourage violence and terrorism is fake totally. I was the Minister of Prisoners between 2007 and 2009. It is the period that we started to increase the payments for the families of prisoners and martyrs and all poor Palestinian families. And it was the perfect period of security. This is the period of Salam Fayyad government and Ehud Olmert government, and the situation changed when Benjamin Netanyahu controlled the government in Israel, mainly started with 2014. I know he started his...
Ashraf, I'm going to cut it here because we're running out of time, and you can continue this discussion afterwards.
The third one is about the German role. We are in touch with the German officials. Unfortunately, Germany now tries to bring President Macron to their side, not to go ahead with the French official governments. So what we need and what we expect from Germany to lead with France, Europe, to a peaceful agreement started with the recognition of the Palestinian state. If you support the security of Israel as you committed in the raison d'être, I think you should support the two-state solution. It is the only way to give Israel security and to give the region stability and to also to respond positively to the interest of Europe, because what happens in our region affects Europe immediately. So if you want to have Europe as stable and secure enough, and Israel stable and secure enough, you should go immediately with France, with Macron, in this recognition process.
Thank you, Ashraf. Naomi.
I'll do it briefly. So regarding your question on how we can give more power to the people, I think gatherings like this, giving voices of Israelis and Palestinians to be implemented in diplomatic processes, such as going to happen next week in the UN, is very important. To have the outputs of this conference be in the table when countries will be discussing this, because don't talk about us without us. We are here, we have voices, we have opinions, we have the experience, and we need to take our own destinies in our hands, and the international community should follow along. And more than that, not only general civil society should be incorporated in diplomatic processes, but also women's rights organizations that are sick and tired of asking a spot on the table. So that's for your questions. And for Maha's question, I'm going to have to think about it more, but I think that one of the opportunities we have after October 7th is the collapse of this idea that managing the conflict is going to bring us anywhere for security. And I think that we have to, that the narrative that we're building needs to stem from the real needs of the people on the ground. And the biggest need right now is security and safety. So I think we should talk about that and really take the advantage of the opportunity that has risen right now, that this type of management, of this type of policy have not brought Israelis and Palestinians any type of security, and that we need to do everything in order to stop burying our children.
Thank you. Two short comments of mine before we conclude, very briefly. I wish I could expand on them, but we don't have the time. One is on the question of Palestinian leadership. There is no magic box with a person who's going to come out with a magic wand and make everything great. The one thing that is for sure is that Palestinians need to hold elections. The Palestinian people haven't held elections since 2006. The Palestinian people have the right to decide who should lead them. They need to hold elections. It is the only way to create Palestinian unity, and it is the only way to generate Palestinian leaders who are going to march the Palestinian people to a better future. So one of the calls of this conference and every meeting should be, it's time for Palestinians to have elections. The second issue I want to mention, and it relates to a whole bigger issue of education. And I'm not going to get into the whole issue of education, but there is one thing that we could do that makes no sense that we are not doing it, and shouldn't even be controversial, is that every Israeli should be learning Arabic from grade 1, and every Palestinian should be learning Hebrew from grade 1. It makes absolutely no sense that we don't do this. These are two sister languages. If you speak one of them, you already know hundreds of words in the other language. And this is something which is not controversial, and it will be a way to change our attitudes and our understandings of the place where we live. I want to thank the panelists with me, and thank all of you for being with us.